Hey everybody, Lars here. It is Sunday, and I am in the friendly confines of the cave here on Bush campus. And I wanted to really quick, before I shot home, because I'm packing and I'm moving things back and forth, and I'm basically going crazy. But before I did that, I wanted to make sure you got review video 1 for Unit 2, because we move so fast in the summer that this unit's going to end a week from tomorrow. And I want to make sure you get your resources, you have a chance to get everything. I'm going to really quick go through some basic examples with strings and with lists, and then we're going to look at something kind of cool with reverse indexing and Python. But I'm going to get started right away, and I'm going to get going so we can get you this video and get out of here. And then hopefully tomorrow, and I'll talk about this with a little bit of announcements at the end, but I'll do major announcements in the second video, because I hope to do that for you tomorrow and get you that. And that's going to be about loops. And then it's really cool, because once you have loops and strings and lists and all of this stuff, you're really going to have some tools to start tackling problems and to start doing things. And if you read the slides, you know what I'm talking about, because all of a sudden now you have the tools you need to attack some Euler problems. All right, I'm going to get going. I prepared some code. Do not type this. You are going to have this in your Sakai resources afterwards, so you'll be able to play around with it. We're going to do basically 3 things today. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at some stuff with strings. So the first thing I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to run this. And once it runs, let's get a little area here where we can talk about what we have. Okay, so the first thing I do here is I create a variable name, not the most descriptive variable name in the world, but it's called myString, and I assigned it the string, the rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. Eliza Doolittle, whatever, Pygmalion. I forget the name of the movie off the top of my head right now. And I'll remember it in the middle and I'll bark it out. So we have that long string. So let's say you want to know how long a particular string is. Well, you can use a function called len, L-E-N, and run it on the string. And when we print it, we see that it is 43 characters long. But don't get confused, because we're computer programmers and we start counting with 0. Okay, so you actually have characters 0 through 42. So that T right there is going to be my string of 0, and that N right there is going to be my string of 42. Okay? Oh, coffee. So when we print how long it is, it's 43, but that's 0 through 42. And we're going to play around with this in this second section here where we say access the characters with an index. I'm going to print my string of 5 at first. So I look here and I see that it's an A. So if I start counting with 0, I have 0, 1, 2, 3. The space counts. The space is a character. Okay? 4, 5 is the A, as we've printed out right here. So we start counting with 0, and we come over here and get A. Then for the first time in our Python journey, we're running into something called an interval. Now, you're going to see this in some other areas, like when we do loops and when we do other things, when we do the range function. But for now, what you need to know about a range or an interval in Python is that it starts with the first thing you want, which is the 5. It ends with the first thing you don't want. Okay? So the beginning of the interval is inclusive. The end of the interval is exclusive. So, my string 5:15 will give us characters 5 through 14. And if we come up here and count it, we'll see we get to that 5, because I know that it's the A, and we'll go all the way down to the A, Ein in Spa. Okay? And that character right there, the A, is 14. 15, the I, is the first thing we don't want. All right? And you're going to hear me say that all through this course. It's going to be like a broken record. The end of an interval is the first thing you don't want. Okay, and we're going to get into that a little later when we start talking about the print statement. Now, I come down here and I was able to run my program because I asked for my string of 42, which would be the last character, or the N. Now, what if I asked for 43? Remember, my length said 43, so if I'm a new programmer and I don't know to start counting at 0, I'm going to say, okay, print me out the last thing, and I run 43. So now when I run this code, it blows up. You get an error. Okay? And the reason you get an error is because it says right down here, string index out of range. You asked for something that doesn't exist because it's past the string. Now, in other languages, C, for example, C will run that command and there won't be a problem. because C is just looking at memory locations. It says, okay, if I start here, you know, the beginning of that variable, and I go 43 characters away and I give you what's there, that's what C is going to do. So in C, an error like this would really be troubling because you wouldn't know how it happened. But in Python, Python is good. If you out-index your string, Python is going to tell you, hey, you're not allowed to do that. And basically you get an out-of-bounds error. Okay? Now I'm going to go back and reset that. And we're going to get good code again for us to look at. Okay? So that's what happens with an out-of-bounds error. I reset that straight. This section right here, as you can see, I can use arithmetic in my index right here. So my string 4 plus 5 is going to be my string of 9, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9 is an I. So I look down here, and that's exactly what I get, an I. I do the same math here. 12 minus 3 is also a 9. So I get the same I. Okay? So you can do math. Sometimes that comes in handy. Let's say you're a game programmer and you have a long string with a bunch of characters, maybe a bunch of X's, a bunch of O's, a bunch of things that you use in your game. And you don't want to do different strings for everything. You want to put it all in one big string and then just go and get what you need. Well, you can use math in your index to go to the right spot and grab the right thing. You know, if you get into game programming, you learn about these things called sprite sheets. All of your picture resources are basically on one big sheet. And you just use math and indexing to go to the right place to grab the section you want. Okay? So math inside of an index may seem like a little parlor trick right now, but it actually comes in handy down the line. All right? Then we have things called string methods. For the time being, and you're going to learn what methods are in Unit 5, but for the time being, just think of these as little mini programs that we can run on our strings, little extras, little things that we can do to our strings. So I do a bunch here. I do one called upper, which takes the entire string and makes it uppercase. Okay? And then I print it again to show you that I see print my string.upper, and you see it's all in uppercase. But then I print the string again to show you that, hey, that change doesn't stay. Okay? If you want it all in uppercase, you can print it like that, but that does not stay, that change. Okay? So here I do a second method called replace, and I replace the word Spain with France. So you can see the rain in France falls mainly on the plane, right? But then I print it again, and Spain is right back there. So what you need to know is that when you run these methods on strings, it's going to do something temporary and print it out for you, or it's going to give you that value. And then when you go back to the regular string, it hasn't changed. Because strings have a property in computer science that we call immutable. Like mutation is change. Okay, so mutability means the ability to change things. Strings can't be changed. They're what's called immutable. And that's going to come in handy later when we talk about lists. But strings are immutable. We don't change them. If we want to change them, we have to create a new string. Okay, and you're going to see that a little down at the bottom. So I do replace Spain, France, and it doesn't stick. If I want it to stick, I just assign it to a new variable. I'm going to say new string, and I'm going to assign it the variable of replace. And this time I replace Spain with Germany. And then I print new string, and I get the rain in Germany falls mainly on the plane. So that's what you would do. You would run your mini program on it and assign the new value to a new variable, and then you could keep it, and then you could have it to run on things. Okay. Lastly, what I do is I run a method called count, which counts the number of n's in the string. Let's go up and see what we got. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the character n appears 6 times, and that's exactly what it tells me. Right there is a 6. Okay? All right, so you know you can assign a variable a string, which is just a list of alphanumeric characters. All right, when we index into that string to get different sections of it, we could use the index. We start counting at 0, and then we can go and grab individual things. We can also get intervals. In Python, we call it slicing, but in Java, you'd call it a substring or something like that. And as you can see right down here, when we do our intervals, the first part is inclusive. It's the first thing you want. Second part is exclusive. It's the first thing you don't want. Okay? Python won't let you have an out-of-bounds error. It'll tell you. Okay? It'll give you an error, and it'll blow up. So that's actually a good thing. Keeps you honest. All right? Because remember, when you have a 43 length string, you really have 0 through 42. All right? And if you try to do anything beyond that, you really can't do it. Okay? Although, in some contexts, you can. You're going to see at the end of this video, we're going to have a little fun with a little weirdness in Python. Down here, index math. You can use math in your index with your integers, so that's fine. Methods, little mini programs that you can run on your strings. Here we learn about upper, replace, and count. Strings are immutable. You don't change them. You just create new strings, so it's not a hassle. You can do stuff, okay? All right, so that's the part on strings. What I'm going to do, 1, 2, 3, is I'm going to comment this stuff out for the time being so we can talk about lists. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that, and then I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to put 3 there because we have some other stuff down there. So now I'm going to run my list code. And when I do that, I get a whole new set of goodness. So we're going to review this. Now, when I want to create a list, I have a variable. Again, cleverly named my list. These are terrible, terrible variable names. I should give it something meaningful. But this, you know what? This is a general overview, so I guess the variable names are general. What I do is I open with a bracket, not a paren, not a brace, a bracket, and then I list my items. So I'm just going to have a list with 4 alphanumeric characters. My goofy name, capital L, A, R, S, okay? So then when I print it, you can see it prints the list. It's not all nice like a string. It doesn't print it in a row like it's going to be displayed. It gives me my L, my A, my R, and my S. And then, just like a string, I can index into it. So we start counting at 0. So number 2, 0, 1, 2 should be the R. And when I look over here, turns out I get that R. So at this point, you're probably saying to yourself, hey, that's great. Why the hell do I care? This is the same as a string. Why is this different from a string? Well, it's different in 2 different ways. Okay. The first is, look here, my list of 2, I'm going to assign it a 7. And then I'm going to reprint the list. What happens? LA7S. Well, that's a little weird, right? Unlike strings, lists are mutable. You can change them on the fly. Were you to try that with a string, you'd get a big error because you're not allowed to change character by character with a string. They're immutable. Lists are mutable. You can replace things in different spots on the fly. Okay? Very important. There's another thing that example showed. Character, character, integer. Integer. That's not something you have in your strings. Strings are limited to alphanumeric characters. They're like words. They're signs, okay? But all of a sudden now, my list contains 3 alphanumerics, single characters, and 1 integer. Well, that's the magic of lists. You can mix and match data types. And that comes really in handy. I can have a float, I can have a string, I can have an integer. And what you're going to learn later when we deal with Unit 5 is you're going to be able to save your objects there. So any custom data type that you're going to create down the road as a more experienced programmer, you're going to be able to save them in lists. So lists are great, and I say this every time. You're going to hear this a lot too. Lists are like empty bookshelves. Can you imagine if at the snap of a finger you could get an empty bookshelf to store your things or reorganize things or do things different? Wouldn't that be awesome? Believe me, I'm moving. I wish I could just create bookshelves out of whole cloth. The books were the bane of my existence. I finally got them all in a storage space. I had 65 boxes that had to go to a storage space so I could do all the books. Now it's just furniture. I can handle that. That's easy. That's the moving guys are going to do all of that stuff. But the books, ooh, ay caramba. All right. So that's the thing I want to get across when we talk about strings versus lists. There's 2 huge differences. One, lists are mutable. You can change them on the fly. You can take a certain value in the middle and change it to another value. And you can mix and match data types. You can have different data types in your list, which you're going to see later on down the road is completely priceless. You can have a collection of things, and they don't have to be the same data type. They could be an integer that describes how many times, say, in a game context that an enemy got killed, and it could be an object that has the pictures of the actual, 3D character. It could be, you could do all kinds of things. It's really convenient, and it's really cool. So down here, to illustrate that, I create my list of 2, and I assign it an integer, a float, a string, a letter, another integer, and then at the end, I give it another list. So you can see down here, look, I put a list in a list. All right? You can do that. You can have lists of lists. Back in the dinosaur days when I went to school, they were called multi-dimensional arrays. If you had long lists of things, we called them arrays of things. And then if you had multi-dimensional arrays, you had like rows and columns. That's how we handle row and column data. And you can index into both and do a whole bunch of different things. So one more thing I'm going to show you. like the strings, there are little mini programs that you can run on lists as well. And they're also called methods. And what I do here is I run one called append. And I add a string to the list. So that when I reprint list 2, you could see that one more item right there at the end. And even if we wanted to, here, I'll rerun this. If we wanted to see how many items we had in our list, we could do a len. And a len on a string is the same thing as a len on a list. It'll tell you how many items are in the list. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, oh, never mind. I'm printing my list like this. So I want my list 2. I'm going to print it, and then I'm going to put the length after it. So now I get it with one more item, and there are indeed 6 items. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? Indexed 0 through 5. All right? So, like I said, you're going to get this code, and you're going to be able to play around with strings and lists, and remember that the 2 major differences, mutability, mixed data types. Okay? When you talk about that. Now, we're going to have a little bit of fun. All right. Okay. I have here a string variable called string4, and it says hello world. So, let me set up. Make sure I have a nice little setup here so you can see exactly what it is I'm doing. I have a string. Is that right there? I can leave that down on the bottom. Called hello world, okay? So let's say I want to print this string. I'm going to print string4, and I'm going to run it. Yeah. String4, print string4. Oh, probably doesn't like that. I'm going to run that, and I'm going to get hello world, which is nice. Now, if I want to, I can grab different characters from that. So if I grab the 3, I get one of the L's, which is not good because 3 and 4 are both L's. Let's see. What if I give it the 5? I should get the blank space, right? That's not a good one either. My 0 up, I'll take 4, and 4 should give me that O. And that's what I get, okay? So if I want, I can also slice into things. So let's say I wanted to start at 2 and go to 7. Now 7 is the first thing I don't want, so I'm going to get 2 through 6. So 0, 1, I'm going to get L, L, O, space. And 7 is the W, and I'm not going to get it. So let's see what we get. And, oh, I got the W. Why did I get the W? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, because it's the 6th thing. And then the first thing I don't get is the O because it's the 7. Okay? So, and we'll get to the heavy stuff in a minute. Let's say I want to default at the beginning and only go to the 5th thing. Then I can just put a colon there. Okay? Pretty cool. There's a bunch of other things I can do as far as slicing is concerned. But one thing I can't do with a single character, I got hello world. So I've got 0 through 10 because there's 11 characters. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay? So I'm 0 through 10. What happens if I try to print 11? Python tells me to go away because I've gone string out of range like we talked about in the previous thing. I said, okay, but what if I do 0 through 11 in an interval? So the first thing I want is 0, H, and then the last thing I want is 10 because 11 is the first thing I don't want. Okay? So I've gone past that. Now when I run things, I did save. I get the H. Why did I just get the H? Hold on. Oh, because I only have a 1 there. How about putting the 11 there? Okay. So now I get hello world. Okay? Which you don't need to do that because I just would print the whole string, right? But anyway, I want to show you some indexing. Now, if I do 11, it's out of bounds. If I do 0 to 11, I get the full string and everything is good. Now, what if I did this? What if I did a 12? Okay, that's 2 past the end of this particular string. Okay, seems a little weird. So you'd think I run it, it's going to blow up, right? No, it doesn't. I can actually, I'm going to skip ahead. I'll put 8,000 there. You can put any arbitrarily large number in there, and when I run it, it's going to print that string. Okay? I think I know why, because of the technical things. If I want to go to the end of all these different strings, I can do that, but why wouldn't I print just the string name? I don't know. It seems a little odd that I can go that long, because God knows if I try to do the 8,000th character, it's going to blow up, because my goodness, that's crazy and that's out of range. But the minute I say 0 and I make it part of an index, then I work and I print the whole string for you. Okay? Now, how do these things come up? Back around 2.5 years ago, I had a student who wanted to print Hello World, but they wanted to print it with reverse indexing. So the first thing you say to yourself is reverse indexing. What's reverse indexing? Reverse indexing is when you use a negative index, and that starts at the end of the string. So -1 should be the D, and if I do that and I print -1 and I run it, I get the D. All right? You can also do strings or slicing. So let's say I want to do ORL. So I got -1, -2, -3, -4. I'm going to start with -4, and I'm going to go to -1. So when I run this, I get ORL. So it's ORL, but I don't get the D because -1 is the first thing I don't want. And that kind of leads to the problem. The student came to me and said, hey, I want to use reverse indexing, but I want to print the string the normal way, hello world. To which your first response is, why bother? But students learn in Python, they want to play around, they want to push the envelope. That's a good thing. I want people to play around. So I said to the student, okay, well, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to start with -11 to give yourself the H. And then you're going to want to go left to right. And the student's like, well, why can't I start at the other end? Well, I'll show you why you can't start at the other end. If you did -1, -4, okay, so you would go D, L, O, and then the first thing you don't want is the -4. If you try to run that, Python gives you nothing. Python does not like that. When it comes to printing, Python wants to go left to right, left to right. So if I give it an index slice that goes right to left, Python goes, I don't know what that is. You're getting a blank. All right, that's a little bit crazy. Now, if I took that and I added the third component and I said instead of going forwards, go backwards. I did save it. What in the name of heaven? Okay, that's why. Gave it a paren. There we go. So, now, start at -1, go to -4, but do it backwards. Now that I do that, Python's happy again. DLR, I mean. Okay? So I went to D, I got my L, I got my R, and then I didn't get O. So I did it backwards. All right? So now this student is trying to use reverse indexing to print hello world. So he says, let me print -11 to -1. And what are you going to get when you do that? You get hello world because you're at the end of the index, so you don't get that D. So the student, reasonably, if you ask me, says, okay, I want to go one past -1, so I'm going to go 0. All right? And then I'll pick up the -1 and I'll print out hello world. But the problem is when you run that, you get nothing because Python sees it as going, Python sees it as weird because 0 in this context is the H. -11 in this context is the H. So H is the first thing I want, and H is the first thing I don't want. And Python's like, what are you doing? This is crazy. And you get that blank space. All right? So at the end of the day, the best we were going to do, printing it backwards with reverse indexing, was going to be that hello world. All right? Because if you try this, -1 to -11, and then you turned it around backwards, you got that. Okay? But there's one thing that we did discover when we started tooling around. What if I overshoot that end interval and instead of -11 I go -12? So I'm doing what I usually do with an interval, but I'm flipping it around and I'm going down the negative side. Okay? But I'm turning it around. So now when I run that, now I get the whole thing, but it's backwards. Okay? But that's going to come into play later. We're going to play around with that. So what I told the student to do initially is I said, why don't you try this? Why don't you do -11 to -1, okay? So that's going to capture everything but the last D, okay? But what we can do is use something called concatenation. If you use a plus sign with strings, it takes those two strings and it slams them together. So let's do that, but then we'll go and grab that -1 and tack it on the end. In an interval, it's the first thing I don't want, but as an individual thing, I can go grab it. So I'm just going to concatenate it onto the end of what I print there. Okay? Seems a little weird. Do I need? I guess I don't know. I don't need that. Okay? But now when we run things, I get my hello world. So technically, the student was able to use just reverse indexing and print hello world. Okay? Now, I don't want to confuse you, but it's a little neat and it's a little cool, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. Now, print string 4. Let's go back to what we did before. I just have a -1. I'm going to go to -12. Okay? But I'm doing it backwards. So when I do that, Python lets me do that and prints the whole thing, right? So at the end of the day, this thing in parentheses right here is a string. I defined it as -1 to -12, but go backwards, so I get that hello world. If I could take that string and just whoop, turn it around, then I would be doing what I want to do. Now, in a Python sense, this thing in the parentheses, string 4, sliced that way, is this string right here, okay? What do I do if I want to reverse a string? I can index into it, right? Start at the beginning, go to the end, but print it backwards. And you're going to learn that's how we're going to detect palindromes later on in the semester, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. So now I've defined a string, which is hello world backwards, and I'm going to take that string and I'm going to index into it and turn it around. And what's going to happen? What's going to happen is it's going to break. Why did that happen? All right, let's get rid of that and rerun this and see what we get. Okay, we got the hello world. So now I want to take this. Oh, maybe I got to. Yes, I think I have to do this in brackets so that the print is happy. So now, I want that, and now I do that. So now I should be okay. Well, at least I hope so. Hope I know what I'm doing here. And it is. Okay? So, in a very weird way, I've redefined the string to get it backwards, and then I've reversed it. Okay? If this is making your brain hurt, forget about it. I don't want to make your brain hurt. I want you to learn the basics and play around with strings. But as you'll see, with reverse indexing and regular indexing and some of Python's idiosyncrasies, you could do a lot of weird stuff. All right? But this, again, is a second way. Without having to grab that extra character and concatenate it on the end, we can print hello world forward using just reverse indexing. Because as you can see, we're really just using reverse indexing there. And it's a little convoluted, but we're getting the final result that we want. All right, so I figured we'd play around with that. And this is the kind of stuff I want you guys to do. When you learn about strings and you learn about lists, and in the second half of the unit you learn about loops, I want you to play around with these things so you get to know what they can do, what they can't do, and you learn the whole universe of things that you can do as far as string manipulation and playing with your lists. We're going to learn in a couple of weeks about the Python documentation online, and you can go online and learn about all the different methods you can do with strings and lists and all kinds of cool stuff. But there's a lot of cool manipulations you can do just by what we were doing there, playing around and printing things back and forth and understanding what you can do with the different kinds of indexing. Okay? All right, good. Then I am going to get rid of this, and I am going to come up here and get rid of this, and it is time for the grand finale. Okay, not so shabby. And look at that, I'm printing my hello world. I'm going to take this code and I'm going to put it up on Sakai in your Unit 2 resources. So you're going to have it, and you're going to be fine, and you're going to be able to do what you need to do in order to practice, do the exercises, and get ready for the assignments and the quiz that's coming up in about a week. All right, I'm going to get out of here because I don't think it makes any sense for me to do announcements when I'm going to do a second video for you tomorrow, and we can do announcements there. My only advice is keep moving forward with the resources. Read the slides. Read the Zill. Look at this video. Okay? If you get the code, play around with it. If there's anything, go back and watch because it's YouTube, and that means you can stop it and do whatever you want and play around with things. Okay? Tomorrow, which is going to be Monday, is going to be, hopefully by the end of the day, I'm going to get you your second video, and then Tuesday I will get you the assignments. so you can start working on the assignments. The assignments for Unit 2 are kind of cool. They're not super long, but they take a little bit of brain power. And what we're going to learn later down the line is that they're two special programs that we're going to be able to talk about and learn a little bit from. So I'm probably going to get you the assignments on Tuesday. I'm probably going to get you the second review video tomorrow on Monday. And we're moving right along because you guys are already through Unit 1. And you kind of got the gist of, oh, okay, I get this. You do the slides. Then there's 2 assignments to do later in the unit. And I got to do my forum post. And then I got to do my quiz. And after that, that's how a unit exists. Plus, it's Unit 2. So we're going to start talking about getting you the information you need to do your midterm. Okay? Because I always want to give people a month before the midterm is due. And I haven't looked in the syllabus in a while, but I think that's coming up. So I want to make sure that you're in good shape as far as that's concerned. All right? All right, then I'm getting out of here. You be good, and I'm going to see you tomorrow because I'm going to do another video real soon. All right? Talk to you later. Bye.